I'm Kaylee, and these are the books that I read in March. I really enjoyed a lot of my reading in March, but there were a few things that I did not enjoy. I loved everything that I read for middle grade March, but there were a couple other books that I tried which I ended up DNFing. So it was the good, the bad, the ugly, kind of a mixed bag in March. Before we get started, I'm going to reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're going to shout out somebody randomly. Today's shout out goes to Aoife at Words of Clover. I will leave a link to their channel in the description. Be sure to go over and subscribe to them, and please do subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and give this video a thumbs up if you had a good reading month in March. And of course, follow me over on Instagram and Storygraph and Goodreads and all the places. I read 15 books in March. I read 1 classic, 5 middle grade books, 4 YA, 1 graphic novel, and 4 picture books, and I DNF'd a nonfiction book, and I DNF'd a modern classic. So we're going to start with the DNFs because I know you're just dying to know what book was so horrific that she couldn't even finish it. So the first book that I DNF'd was Walking with God by John Eldredge. I've read other books by this author and really liked them, but somehow this book just took some weird ideas and took it a little bit too far. This book encourages you to listen to that small inner voice of the Holy Spirit and to spend time in prayer and listen to God. And I liked the basic premise of the book, but the author just took it really too far. Yes, we should ask God for direction and guidance in all that we do, but I don't think I need to ask God what to have for breakfast. Just choose a healthy breakfast and move on with your day. Yes, God cares about the little details of our lives, but that doesn't mean I have to stop and pray about every little detail of life. God gave me a brain, and God gave me reason to be able to make some small decisions for myself. It felt like this book was just making a mountain out of a molehill. Well, I stuck with it until page 52 when the author tells a story about how they had writer's block. And instead of just assuming that, that's a normal human thing, creativity kind of comes and goes, it ebbs and flows in normal ways, But the author became convinced that this writer's block was not due to natural causes, but was actually a demonic attack. To assume that you're in a spiritual battle when something normal happens is it just felt really ridiculous. I mean, I don't know what their personal experience was. And do spiritual attacks happen? Absolutely. But when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. This book just seemed really irrational to me. I rely on the common sense and logical reasoning that God gave me in order to discern what in my life is worthy of closer attention and spiritual intervention, and what things in my life can simply be dismissed as normal human patterns. So I DNF'd it. It was just a little bit ridiculous. And that was a big disappointment because I've previously read other books by this author that I really liked. The other DNF was another big disappointment because, again, I've read a lot of books by Daphne du Maurier that I really liked. Well, I say a lot. Really, I've only liked Rebecca and My Cousin Rachel. So I tried Rule Britannia and DNF'd it after page 137. I really tried to stick with it, but it was just so awful. So Emma has grown up in Cornwall with her grandmother, who is retired from the stage. And her stage name was Madam, but everybody now has just nicknamed her Mad. And she has adopted 6 orphan boys, ages 3 to 17, and they're all very troubled youths, and they have a history of running away from foster homes and stuff. And Madam does very little to control them, and they just run wild. So first of all, everyone in the entire household is insane. It kind of gives you clues in the plot. First of all, Madam's nickname is Mad, and there's your first clue that she is nuts. And even the housekeeper's name is Dottie because, she's Dottie, okay? They're all psychologically disturbed. And there is some profanity. And what really grossed me out though was that the older boys teach the 3-year-old to say curse words. And that was just This is messed up, y'all. This is just gross. And there's quite a lot of violence and descriptions of guts and blood and stuff. And one of the 11-year-old boys commits murder, and Mad and the rest of the family help him to hide the body. And the child shows no remorse. He is proud of his first kill. I mean, this book is just so messed up on so many levels. So yeah, after the murder, I was like, yeah, I can't deal with this. I don't want all the blood and the guts and stuff, so no, thank you. The other classic that I read, I really, really loved. It's another book by Temple Bailey called Silver Slippers. Joan thinks that she has found her true love when she gets engaged to Drew. But Drew is selfish and he's always jealous of anybody she talks to. And he laughs at what he calls her prudish morality. Joan is so unhappy that she turns to a new acquaintance, Giles, for advice. He owns a bookshop in town. They develop a close friendship and Joan really trusts Giles's wisdom, and he really wants to get her away from these selfish high society people that she's been hanging out with. But Joan finds herself strangely fascinated with her fiance, Drew, even while he's making her really unhappy. Despite his faults, she just can't make up her mind to leave him. I just loved all the ups and downs of this romance. Joan has some really lovely character development as she begins to find the courage to face the truth that Drew is not a good guy. And Giles is absolutely delicious. Oh, I fell in love with him right away. And not just because he owns a bookshop. He is just everything that a hero should be. He is steady and strong and honest. And I just kept falling in love with him over and over and over through the whole book, as he consistently shows courage and kindness and generosity through the whole plot. The writing really grips your emotions. I was crying through half the book because it's just like these raw human emotions. It's not just that Joan is fascinated with Drew and all the glitter of high society, but she also has to face like her own fear of loneliness, fear of being poor. And there are also a lot of supporting characters who have many struggles of their own. So Giles has a friend who is suffering from his injuries after the war, and Joan brings comfort to a lonely housekeeper at a hotel. There is a very weary widow lady with 2 children who's trying to make ends meet by teaching the little village school. There are a lot of really lonely, grieving people. So we get to explore all these really deep, raw themes of human nature. The best thing about this book, though, is it has a lot of Christian themes. Joan and Giles both spend some time on their knees in prayer, asking God for guidance and strength. This just brought so much depth to the story and gave a lot more meaning to their character arcs. I gave Silver Slippers 5 stars. It was absolutely fabulous. One of my wrapped books this month was The Treekeepers. Bird is a street orphan, and she's grown up stealing food and avoiding the soldiers. When her only friends get sick, she asks for help from Farwender, who has a secret elixir from a long extinct tree that will cure any illness. Anyone who uses this elixir will be carted off by the soldiers and thrown into prison because it's forbidden. So Farwender takes Bird to stay with the Lady Soladin, and she learns about the history of the tree that produced the elixir, and she learns how her own history is entangled with that of the tree. I really liked the imaginative world building in this book. There is so much adventure as Bird and her friends go on this quest to restore the old tree. Bird has a very complex personality. It's like she wants to be good, but she's grown up to be tough on the streets. She has no manners, she bites people, she steals, she lies. She's just greedy and horrible. Now, of course, through the story, she does have a character arc where she's trying to do better. She finally learns to control her temper. By the end of this journey, she is more sweet and gentle. She has a really extreme character arc. I also really liked that there are reflections about faith in God in the story. So the main characters, they pray to God, who they call the Holder, since he has created and holds the universe together. And this is really the source of all of Bird's character development, is she begins to have faith in the Holder. I was surprised that there's kind of a lot of violence in this book for this age group. There are people being killed by the evil soldiers, people who are mutilated, people that are hanged and beheaded. There's a soldier that gets his throat ripped out by a chimera monster. I mean, there are a few pretty nasty descriptions of like severed heads and blood and stuff. I guess I just didn't expect a book with a kitten on the cover to be quite this dark. So if you want to see all the sensitive content in this book, you can check it out on Screen It First because it has been screened on that website. So then you can kind of see, well, what sort of descriptions of the violence are there, and then you can determine whether or not it's too violent for you or whether you feel like, that's fine, I can manage that. I also read a Choose Your Own Adventure book, Dipper and Mabel and the Curse of the Time Pirate's Treasure. I've always really liked the Gravity Falls cartoon, so it was a lot of fun to go on another adventure with Dipper and Mabel. And of course, it was fun to have a Choose Your Own Adventure, so you can actually read through it several times. And I think I read through it like 3 or 4 times so that I could choose all the different things. But there are 2 places in this story where you are asked to make a moral choice. One of them is where you can seek vengeance or not, and another one is where you can cheat in a race or not. However, both times, if you choose the moral option, the narrative just laughs at your silly choice and forces you back to the storyline where you have to seek vengeance or cheat. That just felt really wrong to me. That was like, what? Why can't I choose the moral thing? And why am I being ridiculed as the reader for choosing the moral thing? This would have been a 4-star book, but that took it down to 3 stars. This is another one that you can check on Screen It First, and you can see the exact screenshots like of those pages where it forces you to make an immoral choice in the narrative. I also read Warrior Princess. This is about Branwen, who is the daughter of the royal house on the edge of Saxon territory. And when her brother is killed, she vows to get revenge on the evil Saxons who raided their lands. I liked this book just okay. The story is interesting. I liked Branwen's character all right. It's a little bit silly how she can just magically, she knows how to fight after only 2 days of training. But there is some magic involved, and so it's like, I guess she had like this blessing, this magical blessing where she's fated to be the chosen one, to be this great warrior, and so I don't know. Is it magic that she could fight so well, so quickly? I don't know. The story is really, really violent. Lots of descriptions of battle and gore and corpses and severed heads and severed limbs and like gouged out eyes and all kind of gross stuff. This is the first book in a series and it ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger, but I was like, I just wasn't interested enough to continue. It was fine. I probably would have given it 3 stars, but it was so violent that I bumped that down to 2 stars because I was just like, that was a bit much. I also reread the first book of the Heroes of Olympus series, The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. So I've really been enjoying rereading through Percy Jackson and the Olympians, and now I'm going to be rereading through the Heroes of Olympus. I gave it 5 stars. I just completely love Percy Jackson so much. Now in this book, Percy Jackson is missing. He's the lost hero. And Annabeth is frantically searching to find him. And we have 3 new main characters. We have Jason, who has lost his memory. We have Leo, who is very good with any sort of mechanical stuff. And then we have Piper, who has charm speak, so she's very good at persuading people. And they all team up on a quest to rescue a kidnapped goddess. I just love everything about this series. It is so wonderful to have some old favorite characters from the first Percy Jackson series coming back, but then we're also introducing new characters, so the world building just keeps expanding. 5 stars all the time. Love Percy Jackson. I also reread Life and Death, which is the gender-swapped Twilight. So this is almost exactly Twilight again, except everybody is gender swapped, and then some of the dialogue is slightly changed and some of the story is slightly changed. I've always thought that this was just a really fun kind of what if, you know? I enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. The rest of the books in this video are books that I received from the publisher in exchange for a free and honest review. I read the graphic novel of The Great Turkey Walk. So this is about Simon, who wants to start his own business, and he discovers that if he takes these turkeys over to Denver, they will sell for a lot more money. So he can buy them for like 25 cents each where he lives, And then if he can get them, hundreds of miles away to Denver, he could sell them for like $5 each and make a huge profit. So he hires a driver to drive the mules in the wagon, and he sets off across the prairie with 1,000 turkeys. Along the way, they meet thieves, they befriend a runaway slave, and they just struggle to keep their flock together in the wild prairie. This was really adventurous and fun. I loved the warm colors and the sweeping prairie scenery of this graphic novel. I gave it 4 stars. And I read Boy Underground. Hugo has autism and he is obsessed with maps. So when he hears about the catacombs underneath Paris, he decides he wants to go exploring. However, it's illegal to go down there because it is so dangerous. However, Hugo memorizes maps of the underground and he prepares for a solo expedition anyway. His friends see him sneaking underground through this basement opening, and they follow him down there and they have many adventures and they get lost for a while and they have to find their way back out. I really enjoyed reading this book from the perspective of a person with autism. It was just so interesting to learn about the different difficulties and strengths that come with autism. However, I was kind of dismayed at Hugo and his friends' lack of a moral compass. They just kind of do whatever they want without asking if it's right or wrong or if it's legal. I was just kind of disappointed that our heroes weren't very heroic. But I did really love the writing style. Hugo's voice is just so unique and compelling, and his kindness and courage really inspired me. So I gave this 3 stars. I also read After the Wallpaper Music. Flora loves playing classical music with her friends in their string quartet. But when she meets the new boy at school, those friendships are tested. Simon is the son of a famous rock star, and Flora and Simon begin to connect over music, and Flora begins to discover that she really likes a lot of different genres and a lot of different styles of music. However, Simon is grieving because his sister passed away in a car wreck. And so that creates kind of some awkwardness between him and other people, and they don't know how to respond. This was just such a beautiful, really sweet book. And I liked the way that the themes of death and grief were explored in a light way, perfect for this age group. Nothing too dark or gruesome, and it's all about finding hope and compassion and being able to comfort your friend in the midst of a really difficult loss. And as a musician, I was absolutely delighted with the descriptions of music and how musicians feel. I really loved Flora's complex character as she is kind of using music to connect with people. It was just absolutely beautiful, and I gave it 5 stars. I finished reading the Jackaby series. I read The Dire King, and then I read the spinoff, Rook. I'm not going to say a lot about these because it's the last 2 books of a series, so it's pretty much spoilers if I tell you anything particular. Suffice it to say that Mr. Jackaby and Miss Rook are paranormal detectives. And they have all kind of adventures, tracking down magical creatures. There's quite a bit of murder and mayhem, and the plot is really mysterious, and the adventure is lots of fun. I loved the magic and the world building and the witty dialogue. I gave every book in that series, I think, 4 or 5 stars. And those are the books that I read in March. Please leave me a comment and let me know what was one of your favorite books that you read in March, or what was a book that you hated and maybe even DNF'd. I would love to hear about what you've been reading recently. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.